Okay, we're live and recording. Hello everyone and welcome to our talk on nextmuseum.io. Thanks for joining on this really hot afternoon. I don't know about you guys, but here it's like really hot in Düsseldorf. So great. Maybe some technical issues first before we dive in. Some of you already explored this chat on the right-hand side. You can post any questions or feedback or discussion themes on this chat. And we also have an Ask a Question button where you can post your question and you can vote which one is the most popular, so we can try to answer them as quick as possible. And also, if you want to join us on the stage, you can text us and I can invite you on screen. Great. Yeah, so today we have a talk about artificial intelligence, the use and representation of it in museums and new forms of curating. And before we start with the talk and our two wonderful speakers, Alexa Kusber and Yasemin Keskintepe, I would say a few words about our project nextmuseum.io. So Next Museum is a digital cross-institutional platform for co-curation and co-creation, and it was initiated by the museum in Ulm and also by the NRW Forum and founded by the German Federal Culture Foundation. And our idea was to rethink and redefine the museum together with you, with the community, with everyone who's interested. And we have several open calls on our website, exhibition projects where artists can submit their works and people can join the discussion and co-create and create with us. And we also have a Telegram group. I can post the link in the chat if you're interested in. And also we have organized some live events like this one, talks with international curators, creators, technologists, and experts, and we want to give a space for discussion regarding the museum of the future and speak with you and the community. And one of the questions on our project on Next Museum is how we can use digital means or digital tools to give more participation and empowerment in the museum. And we thought a good start would be to talk about the big term, artificial intelligence and algorithm in museums. And for that, we invited the two speakers. And as I said, Alexa Jeanne Kusber in Zurich and Yasemin Keskintepe in Dresden. And I would say you can start introducing yourself and say a little bit about your projects, what you're working on at the moment, and then we can start the discussion. Yasemin, do you want to start?
Yes, sure. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much to have invited us for this wonderful talk and to start your exciting project, Next Museum. It's great to be part of this event. So my name is Yasemin Keskintepe. I'm a curator at the German Hygiene Museum in Dresden, which is an interdisciplinary museum that focuses on science, arts, and culture. And the exhibition I'm currently curating is that is going to open next September is on artificial intelligence and has a very wide perspective on the topic, I guess, and takes artificial intelligence as a point of inquiry and as a topic of investigation. So looking at current artificial intelligence practices, what does the term mean? What is possible with this technology? How is it used? What are its implications, socio-political, societal, but also how does it change our perspectives towards labor, towards our body and health? How do we essentially, how do we want to live with, and how do we want to shape this technology? So this is the current project I'm working on, And I have been working in this field for the last few years, so starting at the Center for Art and Media in Kassel at the ZKM, where I curated Open Codes, which was an exhibition investigating programming cultures and looking into artistic practices and how software can be used as a form of art and thought and creativity. And moving on from that, I have co-curated a festival on algorithmic superstructures. It was called for the Impact Festival, which is based in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And there we investigated the architecture and infrastructure of algorithms, looking at their reach and implications on a planetary scale, and that was a festival composed of exhibition, screening program, and talks. So that was basically the scope of what I've been involved with in the past few years. So quite specific on digital media practices and focusing on programming cultures, AI, machine learning technologies within institutional framework of museums, I guess.
Great, thank you. So if we don't have any questions yet, I would say, Alexa, you can continue.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here as well. And I'm Alexa. And yeah, I mean, my background is pretty much in, I'm normally a curator, but really interested in exploring different modes of curating. So kind of disruptive means, how to open up the idea of curating, still exploring what curating means to me, which is why when I came to Switzerland, I was interested in working with the Museum of Digital Art in Zurich, where the main curator has been an algorithm for the past 4 years. And then also I curate a artist residency program in the mountains, where we have farmers and scientists as part of the curatorial team, advising us on artworks in the landscape and how this, how the works interact with animals and the environment. And then before that, I was in London for many years as an independent curator, but again, always very different projects from the Museum of Everything in 2009, which was, again, really exploding how to curate differently. We had kind of museum text on the ceiling and dark rooms, which at the time was, a very no-no to putting on an exhibition. I've done education programs, film programs, always within the umbrella of contemporary art. But my first and only experience with programmed art has been for the last 4 years with the Museum of Art in Zurich. And then before that, I was at the Museum of Contemporary Art in San Diego in California. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so yeah, we've prepared some questions. If we don't have that one in the chat yet, and also from our Telegram group. Maybe, we can start with you, Alexa, with the kind of provocative questions. Will we no longer need curators in the future because AI will take over everything?
Wow, okay. I mean, in my opinion, I would say that AI, we will need curators for sure. I think, just from my experience working at the MuDa and having an algorithm as the main curator, I think, and then just even seeing many experiments that are continuously happening, whether it's, from Google or there's a really beautiful project called Dust and Data. I mean, I think we're learning that we still need the human touch, or in my opinion, I think, I think that machine learning or AI can really assist with our practices in many exciting and challenging ways. But I think we will always need to collaborate with the human curator in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion.
Yeah. So kind of a co-creation process.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really exciting for the future in terms of how machine learning can open up our practices, how it can challenge our practices, how we can be better curators from machine learning, and also what we do with that data. I think this is all very exciting about how to use AI or machine learning or algorithms or bots in our practice. But I think for them to exist solely, as I think I saw recently, like an ad for someone's Biennale just being curated by an AI. I don't know. I find that the spectacle idea, which we've talked about before, I'm sure it sounds fantastic, but I think the realities of it are probably quite, I don't know, maybe non-interesting, or I'd be curious how they would, how this project comes about by just a curator or just the AI curating the entire Biennale.
Yeah, I guess. Someone asked a question, actually. Sabine, deep track. When thinking of AI curators, do you worry about bias in the curation process made by the AI agent?
I'm sorry, where can we see this question?
If you click at the bottom, ask a question, can you see it?
Yeah, I do see some questions, but I don't see that.
I don't see that one either.
Okay,
maybe you could just repeat that question.
Yes, sure.
And then we'll answer.
No problem. When thinking of AI curators, do you worry about bias in the curation process made by an AI agent?
Maybe Alexa, that's a question for you since you have more experience in that regard.
So worried about, I'm sorry, art buyers? Is that, you said buyers?
Yes.
Buyers or bias?
No, B-I-A-S.
Bias. Okay,
Yes.
Got you.
Sorry.
Okay, so sorry. So really quick, one more time, repeat the question, because I was interpreting it as buyers. Okay, so how do we deal with biases within the process?
Yes, biases. Sorry about my English.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, just in terms of the MuDa, how we used an algorithm for our curation. I mean, obviously, we put in our own parameters, like what we were looking for. But the reason why we used an algorithm was we were trying to get away from many biases that we saw exist in museum practice, right? So our search was super simple, and it had nothing to do with race or gender or the state of the artist's career. So we were purely just looking at an algorithm to help us find artists to make our exhibition program more balanced, let's say. But I think, but again, we then interpreted the data and then, chose the artist that we wanted to choose. I think if you're looking at, let's say, an algorithm to, maybe help you more with a thematic theme for your curatorial practice, or, yeah, I mean, there's going to be lots of biases depending on what it's searching, what data you're giving it, if it's machine learning, how you're teaching it to look. But on the flip side, I think some of those biases or some of those glitches could be actually really interesting. I think it kind of depends what the curator wants to do with those biases or wants to do with that data. I mean, one thing that I think is important with any of us using AI going forward, or machine learning or an algorithm, is to kind of really share the process, because I think, let's say we are, at the MuDa, we found biases. I think it would be interesting to share that with the public, because obviously then there must be biases on the internet, or there must be biases in the data that it's searching. And I think if we open that up for conversation within the exhibition, that's actually super interesting, or I like to call these like biases or glitches, like for instance, or let's say you're having a machine learning searching a collection, you know, and you wanted to do a thematic exhibition about artists influenced by shoes in a certain time period in a certain country or something. And let's say you're looking at the data and everything sounds super predictable. And then you see some artworks that you would never think would be in there. Then I think that's exciting. You know, why did the machine choose those artworks within its search? Would you bring that in your exhibition? So I don't know, for me, a bias it depends what the curator does with that. And then also, yeah, I think that they could be exciting to share as part of the process.
Yeah, right. And as I understood your approach, it's actually the opposite, to avoid those advantages that you have those opinions or something, that it's kind of neutral in a way. And about showing the process, Yasemin, in your exhibition, you want to show what AI is to the people, right? And it's not only for AI experts, but for everyone, I guess. So can you say how it will look? How can you mediate it to the people?
Well, I mean, that's what we're figuring out at the moment, right? It's definitely not an expert exhibition. It's supposed to have entry points for all, you know, different levels of prior knowledge to the subject matter. And so there will also be different layers of intensification of the knowledge, from rather interactive, gamified maybe approaches in some respects, to more mathematical, technical explanations of what machine learning is, and questioning what do we understand even by intelligence, and drawing parallels to the human brain, human forms of intelligences, to also probe what the limits of machine learning is, and compare it to humanness, essentially. Because I think a lot of aspects that we understand in machine learning always draw us back to what we are as humans, and so, and how we define our own being, our intelligence, our own. And there's so much still to scientifically discover, right, with neurobiology, psychology, etc. So, as I said, we are an interdisciplinary museum, so we have scientific explanations of how these how, on the one hand, how the technology works, and then also from a neurobiological perspective, how we function, and then having artistic usages of machine learning that try to address the topic from a different entry point. And so we have that's why we have different layers of communication in the exhibition. Adding perhaps to the conversation earlier on curating and machine learning technologies, I think, like adding to what Alexa said, I think it's like definitely the curator will still be needed in the future. The technology so far is so limited in that it can only be used as a tool to supplement our work, and I think still the core of what we're doing as curators, is not touched by that, by finding interconnections and the research that we do that goes into creating narratives and creating discourse in that way is not possible to automate yet. And so it is a tool that can support and can automate certain forms of labor, but definitely not the core of what we're doing if we understand curating as a form of storytelling or telling a story within a space, right? And I think with regards to biases, when we are reaching, I mean, we are reaching out to different experts and working collaboratively with other curators, with institutions, with scientists, with developers, etc. And that's so invaluable, because then we bring together different disciplines, different approaches to the subject matter. And within a globalized world, it is so easy to reach out to someone on a completely different part of the world and bring in their expertise and their perspective into this context. And so, yeah, that these core functions, I think, are hard to substitute by a machine learning system. So.
Great. I think tool is a good word for it. And also in our Telegram group, Juanico Moreno said that you could compare it. AI can be to curation as Photoshop to photographers. You can do great things with it, but nobody really considers Photoshop as an artist. So I think that might be also a good comparison. Let me check. There are more questions. Can you give a positive example for curating with AI?
Yeah, I mean, we at the MuDa, we had used a crawler bot. So yes, a bot that we programmed to search through the internet to find us artists. That's purely, we weren't looking for themes, just for new artists. And I think what we found at the MuDa is just the selection was really interesting, because you would have names being suggested alongside, famous artists to not famous artists. So I think in that sense, to be able to remove some of the biases that we as curators have and maybe don't mean to have, which I've said in the past, that I've always considered myself open-minded, but I mean, we all have, the human in us. So depending on how we think, how we were trained, what our experience has been, we have biases. And I think at the MuDa, it was really interesting to see the exhibition program, by using this bot or this algorithm, it really assisted us to have a more balanced exhibition program. And I think that, was very exciting.
Great. And maybe another question in relation to that. When you say it's going to be a co-creative process, what is the main part of the work for the AI? I mean, you said it's a crawler bot and it's going through the internet. And what's the part of the AI and what's your part or the part of your team? Because I know that you work in a team as a collaborative praxis.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just again, in the situation of MuDa, because with any algorithm or technology that you're using, you're programming it what you need, right? So for us, it was just we're using this curator to suggest artists. So helping us with research, right? Which I find really interesting even moving forward as a curator, because for myself, time is such a precious thing right now. I have a new a young child now. my time is getting limited. So for someone to help me with research, to help me find new artists, to help me, to open up my connection, or, if I'm looking to connect works, I think this is super helpful and exciting. And then this is where I would program the algorithm to do a certain search that I'm thinking of for an exhibition, just for my library of artists, for, again, whatever as a curator you're working on, and then interpreting the data. I think, and then as a curator, that's kind of, I think, which I'm hoping will be a new role for us, So, similar to research and interpreting data like we normally do, curating has kind of become digital in a sense, not many of us are going to libraries and museums and galleries as much as we'd like, especially all over the world. And now what's, the current pandemic, I mean, who knows if we'll even be able to travel as much as we used to. So even just our contents, our research has really become digital. So I think, using this as a tool, I think it's just positive. And at the MuDa, we just had only positive experience with it. Sorry, to go back to what you were saying. So then as a team, we would get the data because we had the list that the algorithm would suggest on a server. And then we're able to look at this list of artists that's constantly updating, and then it's discussed with the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think some of the questions are already answered. Who's Biennale? I think, you were, Alexa, you were saying something about a Biennale, about an ad of a Biennale where they say it's only curated with an AI.
Yes, with it.
The Liverpool Biennial. It was a project for the Liverpool Biennial, actually.
Yes, okay. There was the Liverpool, which was doing lots of experiments. But no, the one that I was actually speaking of, I want to say was Bucharest. Hold on. I think it was, and because they had named it Jarvis.
Jarvis, okay.
Yeah, and it was, hold on. Let me just make sure. For the Bucharest Biennale 2022. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
20 years.
What I guess Yasemin was mentioning, yes, the Liverpool was very also an interesting initiative. And just to what also how Yasemin was saying, how I also think, and at the MuDa and other curatorial practices, I think the diversity of the team is really important, and also thinking about how we curate in the future, and also how we develop museum exhibitions. Because at the MuDa, we had a very diverse team. Again, myself, I had no digital background until I came to the MuDa, just contemporary art. And then also for the Liverpool Biennale, they had also done all these experiments with a curator, a digital artist, and then also somebody in humanities, they had this very diverse team to do all these experiments with AI and curating, or with new technologies and curating. And I think just because also this project is about how we do museums in the future, I think that the more that we collaborate and diversify, and also whether it's getting data in our own museum teams or what we're feeding to or the technologies that we're using, I think the more the better, because then we're able to reach our audiences better. We're able to communicate in a non-elitist way. We're able to have better discussions about our exhibitions, about what we're doing as a museum. I think, and then this is also where the machine or the AI or whatever you're using can be part of that curatorial team. So for me, I'm really excited about this idea of collaboration in many ways, and technology being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, I think.
I guess my practice has been more revolving around shedding some transparency into how the technology works and how we want to engage with it, where we want to use it, how we want to use it, etc. And bringing in different voices that contribute to this discussion. In open codes, that was one of the central features of the entire exhibition. We had this hackerspace, if you want, in the middle of the exhibition, where that took a life of its own. Actually, it was a very collaborative and or maybe following the idea of open sourcing, of open source, in that we first invited different people to share their understandings of the technology, but then that took a life of its own, and people started suggesting things to do and how to work in that space. And it was completely open. The exhibition was free of charge, and so people could come in and out and share their thoughts and ideas. It was really an open platform that we created as the centerpiece of the exhibition. And so, yeah, bringing in a multitude of perspectives, not just from experts, but also from everyone's experiences with this technology. It was really important to us, and to create a dialogue between the works in the exhibition, to use them as a starting point to initiate a wider discussion on how we want to engage with the technology. And yeah, so I guess I think it's really important to also understand the processes behind the technology, and to create a wider awareness of not just the mechanisms behind it and what its implications are, so that we can then claim certain agency over the technology and start using it in certain ways. I mean, we've seen this notion of bias come up so many times now in discussions around AI. Now, that's usually the first question that gets asked, because there is such a lack of transparency on how machine learning technologies function, how they're trained, what the data set is used, etc., what criteria are used, and to probe these things over and over again to create perhaps more accessibility for people to use these technologies, to be part of the creation process. That's really important to me and to my curatorial practice.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it's very important.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, on the other hand, we're also surrounded by it, and sometimes we don't even know that it's everywhere, kind of. Yes. So maybe we can, a lot of questions. Sorry if I'm a bit reading at the same time. To be able to let a machine do the research, a lot of art needs to be digital. Are we there yet? Is the majority of art already digitized? I mean, Alexa, with the MuDa, it doesn't have a collection, right? So it's not dependent on the data that the museum have, but of course you could also use AI in respect of the collection. But yeah, are we there yet?
I mean, I guess it just depends which museum. Again, if you're a curator at a museum that your collection is completely digitized, then yes, great. Then using these technologies will be super, I guess, easier. So I guess it just depends if you're curating, you're within a collection, if you're just searching for data from the internet in general. And again, probably not everything is online. So I think, like we have already discussed, it's good to be open about that, about the data that we receive, about what we do with that, about the things that could be missing. I think we just have to be really honest about our process, but also just if we did our own research, I mean, there's also going to be holes there too. So I think any curated exhibition, you could find things that you thought were missing, or things that you could have added, or, what have you. So for me, I think this would just really, in that sense, help with research for sure, or looking at a collection in a different way, having fun playing with this kind of, algorithm or AI in my practice.
I think this is a really interesting and very important question, in that I don't think that most of art is digitized already. Neither do I think that the essence of art can be transmitted through digital mediums. That's why we have these institutions where we can create an experience that surrounds an artwork, where you can, feel, right? Being in a space, being surrounded by artworks, that's the magic of it, isn't it? And so I think digital technologies have a limited scope of transmitting this experience. And then the important question also is, what is art? And we will have to define very, very precisely what counts as art and what to look for in art. And then, so is performance comparable to video in that sense? And like there are so many different forms of art, and I would have trouble setting the criteria for this. And then if an algorithm seeks out to look for a specific form of art, it doesn't, I think even if it was online, it cannot convey the whole experience of that particular work. So I'd be cautious, I guess, to the outcomes that this algorithm provides. But I mean, then assessing them individually anyway, and then I guess doing your own research in addition to that.
Exactly.
It's a very important question, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I think the more too that we're just very open with the public about how we are using this in our practice and what we do with it. I think this is, is really important, because then there will be so much, I guess, negative thoughts towards this practice, which it really shouldn't be. I mean, I really think it'd be great for us to get into a phase where everyone's just having fun also with this, like seeing what data we get back, what we want, how we use it, again, if we don't agree with it, have that be part of the exhibition. I mean, I think it's just a really interesting way to open up, or for me, I think it's an interesting way to open up my practice and a new, or not new, but playful direction. I look at it as playful, I think.
Great. We actually also have this, I wouldn't say problem, but at Next Museum, you can submit your artworks online. It's a digital platform. And I mean, digital art might be good to see there, but on the other hand, you also have paintings, sculptures, as well as VR art, and it's a big question for us as well, how to see them and to select them in a way. Then, Andreas says, so for you in Dresden, it is more an open codes, but centered around AI as a technology. And for you, Alexa, it is more a tool to prepare exhibitions, correct?
I would say more of a tool, or in the sense, I mean, again, so for me, this is still very new as well, but in the sense of MuDa, for the last 4 years, it was looking for artists. So purely, as a tool to have a more balanced exhibition program. It was,
And from my side, it's a topic of inquiry. It's what we are trying to make accessible, more transparent, which we are taking it as a subject of investigation, and bring in different perspectives that can give us a point of reference to this subject.
Okay, and if we look in the future, 5 or 10 years, what do you think, how it will change? Will there be a lot of museums making exhibitions about AI, or even using it to create it? Or do you think that's not in the next few years?
Yasemin, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, we have seen already quite a few exhibitions on the topic, and I think we are already starting to see a decline in interest in this topic. It's been hyped so much over the last years. We in 2021 September, when we are opening, are already, you know, on the end curve of this. It would be my assessment. It's a topic that has been hyped throughout the past, I don't know, 60 years, always in waves. We have seen AI winters and then peaks again where it hasn't been hyped, and I mean, new technologies always inspire and cause anxieties, and so it will stay a topic of discussion, I think, if we will see as many exhibitions that cover the subject. I don't know, maybe under different or more specialized points of entry. So rather than having general purpose AI exhibitions, looking at more specific angles of how AI in that and that field could be something in the next few years that we will try to cover. Yeah, hopefully by doing this groundwork now, eventually we'll be able to address more specific topics and discourses.
Yeah, I believe, because obviously at the MuDa, we already started to experiment with this as a museum, you know, and also, so again, like as our exhibitions weren't thematic, we used a way to explore AI through workshops with the public, right? So we've already were really trying different ways of engaging. And for me, I mean, just from what I've seen, you know, we have lots of experiments going on the subject. We have lots of exhibitions already have come about. And like we said, and the idea and the spectacle of it is still being a spectacle. I would really love to see more people just using it. I would love to see more museums just giving it a try. I would love to see more curators just to teach themselves how to use it, like myself, and how to use it more in our practice. I think for me in the next 5 years, I really would like to see it happen, or it be in practice, you know, because I think research-wise, and it always just being this topic of discussion, that's why it will always kind of get interesting or not get interesting. And I think the more we use it, the more we explore the outcomes of it in our practice or as museums in our collections, the more we challenge what the data or what the results are, the more that we actually start working with it. I think, and I hope that's what the next 5 years will bring, because again, you know, I mean, just like any art, you know, if we always just have an exhibition about AI, it just depends who sees that exhibition. Just like art, you know, who goes to see it, who already has an interest, who doesn't. But I think the more that we maybe just don't, not take it so seriously, actually, that's the worst thing to say, but the more that that's why I use the word to be playful with it. And that was a big theme at the MuDa, you know, just to start engaging. And I think that could have some really exciting possibilities for the future in the arts, and how we function, because the idea is AI is already around us, like you had said. I mean, it's in society. So we need to bring it into our practice, but we just need to just do it, you know, is what I think.
Yeah, great. There's one more question. I think you kind of already answered it, but maybe I ask anyway. What brought you to the topic, or what drives you? I mean, what was your first involvement with AI or technology in your work? Yeah.
For me, it's so short. My only first experience with it was at the MuDa when I started.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, it was the first time that I wasn't the curator. And so for me, this was really exciting, challenging, not really knowing how I feel about that, you know, because with every curator, there's a little bit of ego and, you know, what have you. So for me, yeah, it's, and then through seeing it in practice, have I become more inspired, actually. So that's, I think, why I hope for it in the future as well.
Great.
Yeah, I guess for me it was I don't know, to terms with it myself, having so many points of, not understanding it myself. So that sparked an interest to look at it more closely when I was a student, and then increasingly then developing a more theoretical interest, I guess, in the topic, and engaging with more and more people from different backgrounds, scientists, artists, activists, and I guess driven by my own curiosity, learning more and how it is shaping my everyday life, as well as the world I'm living in, because it has it brings along so many changes that I want to understand, so that I can shape it as well. I guess.
Great. Okay, so there's another tip, the Futurium in Berlin, for those you know it. And yeah. More questions, guys? Last chance, because time is already up, actually, almost. Yeah. Great. Anything that you would like to add, you two?
No, I guess just, events like these are really exciting, bringing different people together, enhancing the discussion, generate, talking about it from, with people in different countries, different surroundings who engage with it in a completely different way. I mean, for me, it's been really great, Alexa, to get to know how you are engaging with AI in your museum. And that's been really interesting to me, and, from how to start I guess working with it, as you say, it should happen more. And this is a really good example of just get started and opening possibilities, perspectives.
Great.
Yeah. Yes, and as why I think Yasemin, that was very sweet. And I also agree. Projects like this, just to communicate more, to have just an open discussion is really important also with this topic, because I think a lot of people do have a barrier with this topic, or we were talking earlier, sci-fi perception. And I think, the more that we have, very open conversations, the better. The more that we make it more open in our practices, the better, the more we use it and try, fail. I think it's a nice future, hopefully, in this realm. But I do think, I will end on this one subject, that I think, especially during this time, I think as museums, as all of us, have to rethink how we move forward, regardless, because of, the last few months. I think subjects like this, are very important about how we move forward, because this is the time that we actually all have space to change. And I think everyone agrees that they want change in the arts. We have to change now in many ways. And so this is really where I think these kind of technologies can start to be implemented, because we now have the space, or hopefully the space to do so, the space to play, because we need to change. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, talking about the future, Lilo asked if there are going to be any events like this with you in the future. Actually, with Next Museum, we have the next event on the 8th of December with Barbara Fischer and Katrin Winker on the digital change of glance. So not only museums, but also galleries, archives, libraries. And this will be on Crowdcast as well. And I don't know, Yasemin, I guess in next year there will be definitely some events with your exhibition. And Alexa, you have the BA3D Foundation, right?
Yes, which we've had to also do more conversations like this online. So yes, that's for sure. And unfortunately, I guess just to touch, the MuDa actually had to close this year, which is super sad. Just to say about a museum that was really being innovative with its practice. I think one thing just to think about is when we are all experimenting and doing these new events and being experimental with our practice, that we keep doing it, because although the poor MuDa had to close, I still think what it did in terms of experimenting as a new museum will be remembered. So I think, and who knows, we might do digital things online. Only the physical space is closed, not the virtual. So we'll see.
It will live on.
It will live on. Yes, definitely the work that it's done will live on, and hopefully, we'll see.
Perfect. Okay, 2 more questions, and we have to close it. Igit said, what do you think about the applicability of AI creators on cultural heritage, such as archaeological artifacts or past data? I mean, that's not kind of your theme you have, but maybe you can say something to it anyway.
Well, there are different projects that deal with this exact question of cultural heritage, archaeological artifacts. I've encountered it in perhaps 2 different ways that I can mention here. On the one hand, AI can be a tool maybe of finding patterns between different cultural artifacts on the one hand, and then the metadata that museums have. So I've come across collections that have an incredible amount of metadata on their objects, and some museums have only begun to digitize their collections, so a lot of it is still very unstructured and not put into the right context. And AI can help in not only tagging certain, like bring metadata and objects closer together and making it a searchable database, and but also finding patterns between certain objects, and to perhaps even show new trajectories in how objects relate to one another. If you have a collection on the one end of the world and want to search for something else from a very different context, say a museum in India and a museum in the US, you can find common patterns between objects, and then, I don't know, maybe create a new narrative out of this. And you find different connections, different similarities between objects of cultural heritage. But before we can get there, it's a thing of sorting metadata and tagging things, and AI can be really good in automating, making this process faster. That's how I've seen it being used by museums so far as in prototypes and ideas generated.
Great. Okay, Andreas is asking, to train AI, you need data. In which areas do you think sufficient is available to start to develop AI? I don't really get the question.
I think we covered this question.
Yeah, kind of, yes. Yes, I think so too. Great. So, let me check. Great. Okay, so I think that's it. yeah, thank you so much for joining and those interesting insights to your projects and your ideas. And yeah, thanks everyone for participating and joining the discussion. It was really nice, and hope to see you all again, and probably also on next museum.io and on our Telegram group. I can post the link as well. And as I said, the next event will be on the 8th of September. So yeah, great.
Yes, thank you for the questions, for being here. It was a really nice discussion.
Yes, thank you very much as well, everybody. It was great.
Thank you. Yeah, and you can also watch the replay under this link if you have friends who couldn't be there, who are lying in the sun or something. They can watch the replay here. Great.
Great.
So thank you so much, and have a good day.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.